here's a good machine, it's working, and that's a price. And then this consultant says, but hey, now you have to sell it. The engineer says, well, I just did. Of course, in a way, if you are energetic and quick and fast like this and snappy, it may look more inspirational as such. Politicians or movie stars or TV anchors or pop stars and stuff, of course, without looks, many of them wouldn't be where they are. So we have to be honest about it. And it's a touchy subject, but in a way we are, primitive animals. We're not sort of over-rationalized robots.
Yeah. Bias.
We are human beings, and you must know when to be humble and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you have to show that you're, in a way, sort of secure and you own the place. And she looks and acts in a very competent manner.
Okay, so here we are again for another episode of the FLT podcast. Welcome. It's great to have you with us. We've been on the pod now for quite many episodes, and we've sat down with a lot of different leaders with different perspectives. But as we've had so much good sort of insights from the business community, we thought it was a good time to try and reach out a little bit further afield and find somebody with a really solid media background and a good perspective on Finnish leadership, kind of like at the broader scale. So with that in mind, the first name that came up to our minds was you, Peter Nyman.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very humbled about this. You started talking about leaders. I was sort of almost scared immediately. Oh, hey, don't talk about leaders now. I'm sort of, my profession is somewhere else. But I understand what you're saying, and
I'm sure we'll be
why might fit into this picture.
I'm sure we'll be able to dig into that in the coming minutes. But as always, we've prepared a little bit of an introduction for you. Annalie, would you do the honors?
Sure. Okay, my laptop is closed. Alrighty, here we go. Primarily recognized for your work as a journalist and television reporter, you have regularly hosted popular programs like Uutisvuoto and Peter Nyman Uutisvirrassa, and of course the news on MTV3. You are also a writer, having written popular books, including Ankkalammikko, which explores your experiences as a Swedish-speaking Finn, and more recently, a book called Viesti vaikuta vakuuta, Message, Impress, Convince. You are a prominent public figure in Finland, known for your charismatic on-screen presence and engaging interview style even on tougher subjects such as gender. Is that tough? AI and sustainability.
AI is tough as well.
It can be, yes. You are married, a father of two, and an avid football, mainly Arsenal FC fan.
Absolutely.
Beyond your media work, you have branched out into prominent podcasts, more recently the Peter and Peter or Peter and Peter podcast with Peter Wanke, which takes a look at history through facts and personal storytelling. You have your own company and established yourself as a communication and media training expert. You have described communication as the lubricant voiteluneste of any organization and described the role of a leader as similar to the work of an actor, saying a good actor brings her role to life so that it doesn't feel rehearsed. And I'm using her role because my daughter just became an actor. So
great. Congratulations.
Gender aware.
Watch this space then.
Yeah, exactly.
Future
so,
years.
Is this a good representation of you? And which Finnish leader do you think could make a seamless transition to the silver screen?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and I may just subscribe to everything you said. That was question number one. I won't sort of deny anything about what you said, and very kind of you to use all those words. And the second question about the leader who could
take the big screen stage.
Take the stage. And if I understood sort of the question correctly, so someone who could talk the talk and walk the walk, and not look as if he or she was acting, but someone who did it sort of some sort of credibility authentically. Well, one pops to mind, and for a few different reasons, and perhaps it's not sort of the biggest of surprises here, but I would take Björn Nalle Wahlroos.
Okay.
For a few reasons. Not just being sort of a Swedish-speaking Finn myself. I'm not sort of, taking this sort of homewards. But the thing is, he's like from a rhetoric's point of view, he's very skilled. He's very good, very knowledgeable, very sort of learned man. He's got wit. He's always funny. He's provocative, which the audience always likes. It's always sort of a good show. But he does it in a way that really looks as if he is himself, which is very good. So charisma, as mysterious as the word and the content of the so-called charisma is very much about being authentic and being present in your own character.
Right.
You can't look as if you're acting or can't look as if there are sort of tricks and stuff you do or rhetoric skills or things you do, like how you pose and do with your hands so that it looks artificial or that some coach has taught you that sort of a couple of days earlier or something.
Yeah.
So I think, and the most important, perhaps not the most important thing of all, but one of the most important things would be that when they have done sort of some scientific research on what this charisma could be and who are the people who are regarded as being charismatic. So they have a few things in common. They have to be sort of relatable in a way that you could perhaps know her or him, could be sort of your neighbor, someone who is not like completely different, or in a freakish way or in something you just can't sort of touch or relate to. And they have to have this ability of being sort of present in themselves and authentic, but also they have to have something which is a bit sort of like a good pasta al dente, which means it can't be too soft and too easy. Something you have to sort of bite a bit into.
Yeah. Exactly.
And which could be like a bit of just a sliver of arrogance. Could be someone whose energy levels are sort of a bit too high or a bit too low, something that sort of tickles you and doesn't make you too 100% easy to take in, digest. Yeah.
I've been maybe only a few times like on shareholder calls or on like summits when Björn's taken the stage, and he has this strange thing, which I'm trying to now kind of articulate, but it's around the pause he takes, particularly if he gets like a difficult question. You can see him kind of like step back, think about it, and there's sometimes like a wry smile that kind of comes onto his face.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And the whole audience, like, he's thinking something, he's kind of reeling up almost like a boxer for a punch, like he's going to hit the audience with something. And then when he gets into the conversation, somehow you feel warm. He has this ability to kind of turn a crowd.
And it's true. That's very interesting, because at the same time, he has, that small bit of sort of arrogance, which is his brand, but at the same time, there's warmth as well. So he's not sort of truly rude, or you don't get the feeling that that's a bad person or a person of bad character. And this thing about pausing a bit, taking a step back, sort of thinking about something, that's authentic as well, because no one has, immediate answers to everything. So just the fact that he's thinking about something sends you the message that he is authentic and actually present in the situation and reacting to what's happening around him. And that small pause, I want to quote Hitchcock here, the great Hitchcock here, it's building up anticipation. In like horror movies, and that's one of the most important things.
Pause is a difficult concept because you need to be comfortable having that pause. It can be, as you said, it cannot feel rehearsed or anything like that. I think with Nalle is a controversial person. Yeah. And taking a big stage means also that you need to dare, right? Like you said, you need to be...
It's true.
You need to have a point of view, because otherwise people won't, they after a couple of minutes, they stop listening to you unless you dare to say... or dare to express things a little bit in a fashion that wakes the audience up.
It's so true. Charisma is also about owning the place or looking as if and feeling as if you do it. Sort of like think of a good sort of host or a hostess at a party. The guests will feel comfortable if the host or the hostess is sort of like, welcome. Everything is fine. No worries, blah, blah, blah. And he or she shows that they own the place and they can welcome you as a guest or a listener or whatever. So it's about sort of owning the place as well. And looking at the like as well in a way, sort of you can, because like clothing is communication as well and how you carry yourself. So you can think of for instance, of, if someone has, or this a person who's never wearing a suit, for instance, and then you dress him or her in a suit, so you sort of would see that it's not this person's clothes. He or she doesn't sort of carry the clothes in a way that someone who is used to those clothes,
right,
or whatever sort of clothes, like walking around in a speedo thong or whatever. If you do it on Bondi Beach like all year round, you look like
fine.
it's natural. But if I do it or you do it, that wouldn't sort of perhaps look good.
How dare you? How dare you judge me?
Well, you perhaps.
No, I'm not a speedo shape.
What about this? Talking about these pauses, isn't it also that like authentic leader is supposed to be vulnerable in some aspects? And this taking a pause, acknowledging that it's a challenging question, you kind of communicate vulnerability there.
It's true. And talking about rhetorics, one sort of key element there is humbleness when it's due. So for instance, just sort of starting a thing with, if it's a difficult situation, a sort of leader comes in saying, it's tough times here. Listen, guys, I don't know exactly what to say, and then you start building it up. But you enter the situation with this sort of a message of humbleness, in order for you not to show the audience that whatever happens, you always know everything and blah blah blah, because that's not relatable. No one would believe you.
True.
So, in some situations, you sort of have to look as if you own the place and show it. You also have to show humbleness, and as contradictory that sort of sounds or seems or looks, you can do those both things at the same time. So it's not.
Yeah, but it's always going to be a difficult thing to gauge, like particularly if you're thinking about vulnerability and showing a weakness. If you're in a difficult time, it's always hard to work out, do I share my insecurities now, or does the team or the people,
Absolutely.
do they need the message? It's part audience, I guess.
But it's sort of like, a good, winger on the, football pitch. You have to know when to cross or when to dribble, when to, whatever. I mean, that's where the skill set lies. And you can have the skills that you can be able, to do all of these things, but it's about decision making.
Yeah.
So that's a football player without good decision making ruins the skills that he has, because he always chooses the wrong option.
And ruins the team.
Exactly as well. Yeah. So that's.
All right, Peter. So, are you a good actor yourself?
Thank you very much for that. Well, thing is, I'm not an actor. I've never been acting, because things I do on stage, for instance, stuff, I don't consider it's acting. I try to be what I teach, sort of like, to be myself and to be present, and not to put up sort of airs or whatever, things, whatever, like tricks and stuff that wouldn't be, the real thing. So that's at least authentic, exactly. And that's at least something I think I've learned from my trade, is that whatever happens, you have to try to be yourself. And that goes for vulnerability as well. In a way, as paradoxical as that sounds too, in order to be sort of strong, you have to be able to show weakness as well. It sounds paradoxical, but you should have to be comfortable and strong enough in order to let down your guards. And if you're very afraid and bundled up, you wouldn't let down your guards. And that's not a sign or signal of strength then either.
And you don't call yourself a leader, but how would you define yourself? Except micro-entrepreneur.
Thought leader, max.
Thought leader.
Thought leader, okay.
Yeah, if you want to stretch it. But I mean, that's the thing too. Of course, I mean, many people sort of they want to be leaders, and it's important to be a leader and stuff. It's a bit difficult for me to look at myself sort of through that sort of a lens. But so for me, it's always been more about content that I'm interested in. But in that sense, when we talk about leaders and experts and stuff, so definitely that's the camp where I'm coming from more. It's sort of like I'm interested in expertise, whether it's like communication or even football or history or whatever. So that's my game in a way. And of course, then you can be sort of a thought leader or an inspirational figure in the best of cases. I don't know if I am, but you know where I'm coming from. When I'm trying
but
to
if you're an interviewer in a situation, you carry the responsibility.
Yeah, you lead the situation, of course.
You lead the situation, and you also have power. So basically, two very important things that leaders.
Yeah, it's true, and of course I lead myself. You know, the way we talk nowadays in the work life, we everyone, each one of us have to sort of. Everyone has to be able to lead themselves in work life as well. So, of course, there's so many different roles of leadership, and of course, I've got 2 kids at home. So, of course, I have to be sort of family-wise, a leader with my wife for the kids as well. So, I mean, of course, you've got so many different forms of leadership roles, and we are all influencers in so many ways, and we all carry a lot of power as well, depending on whatever the role is. So interviewer, father, mother, boss, workplace, whatever. So that's
So what kind of leader are you trying to be? What's your philosophy?
Well, I'd say more than leader, I'd say if I can, I'd like to be an inspirational figure. I want to give my gift to mankind. But it's like the things I'm coaching. I want to serve people in a way that would be one of the best legacies. That the coaching I do or whatever I've done on TV or on stage, if I can inspire people, teach them something. If people can draw something out of that, which give them something more. And for instance, I mean, doing, of course, a lot of like TV, all this water and stuff. So when people still after so many years come and say that, hey, you know what, my mother, it's not them, they are so young and I'm so old, but with my mother, she was such a great. She's dead now, but every Saturday she's at home. And when the program started, and that gave her so much watching you guys every Saturday. And that's one of the best things. And that's if the answer to your question, what sort of leader or figure I would like to be, is exactly if I can give my fellow humans that sort of a thing, or just teach them communication, for instance. I think that's a very nice.
There's a strange. I can't count the number of times now we've heard the approach, the similar type of response that don't consider me a leader. I don't consider myself a leader. I'm just a person trying to do like my best in the world, and I want to focus on the core. In Finland, it seems to be a really common experience of leaders that they sort of not dismiss the idea of leadership, but they really don't want to be tagged or labeled as a leader. And then if you think about...
We're humble people.
You are. We are indeed a humble people.
For good or bad.
Yeah, but you still strive for the position. I mean, whether that's like a formally acknowledged position, as in with all of the, I would say, airs and graces that you get in places
titles
like...
and whatever.
You get those in the UK or in the US or in Sweden. Not so much, I think, in Finland. I think it might simply be the titles that there's an aversion to in Finland. Because you still, I mean... You know, that thing that you aspire to be, you're still aspiring to be it, right?
But you know what? That's very interesting. Now coming from sort of a history buff's point of view as well. So of course you have a a very flat hierarchical small country, a very republican tradition and stuff. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm sure why you wouldn't sort of be or sort of looking for all these
For the title or the
and,
recognition.
and strict, rigid hierarchies and stuff. I think that
You
could be
mean
one of the reasons.
Republican, not in the American sense, Republican.
No, but in sort of classical sense. No, exactly. As in not a monarchy or whatever. And even going sort of further back down the roots, the Nordic societies. Like if we now want to mythologize a bit, even going back to the Vikings and stuff. I mean, the thing is, it's a bunch of free people who don't have so many sort of hierarchical levels and stuff, and people own their own land, no serfs or anything, and so I think that's a very important tradition, and not to be sort of overly pleased about it. But of course, if you have a sort of a small cold countries, you have to work together. Scotland is less hierarchical than England, for instance, and one of the same reasons: small, cold, and far away. But there's a nice story to it. I think when as cruel and horrible, of course, as he was, the story goes when the Vikings laid siege to Paris. And the Parisians were in a bit of a pickle, and what should we do now? And they sent a messenger to the Vikings saying that, hey, we want to talk to your leader. And you know what the answer was? We have no leaders. We're all free men. And I think that's very as horrible as it is with the rape, loot, and pillage of the Vikings. It was not all they did, but anyway, horrible stuff. But there's a very nice nugget of something in that story, and that tells. Of course, it's a bit of hyperbole as well, but it tells something about. I'd say our Nordic societies.
Yeah. Free men. Can I ask you?
And free women.
Yeah, exactly. Also, that is where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
You guessed. So you mentioned a man who could take a stage. Can you remember a Finnish woman who could take a stage and capture the audience?
Yeah, a lot of good Finnish women who could take the stage. Who should I pick? It sort of came out of the blue. And this interview situation, it's a bit more nervy than sitting on my sofa at home and thinking about it. We can come back to it, but I see a lot of people, and I would encourage women to do it more, because I know as a journalist, there's one sort of not so good angle here, because as a journalist, if I want to get an expert on something, for an interview, and I know people list the 4 best in Finland, for instance, and the expert lists that, okay, the 3 best are women and the 4th is a guy, and you call the first woman, the answer is no. I don't know if I know enough about this, so perhaps you could call another person. Blah, blah. You call number 2, the same story. You call number 3, the same story. Then you call the 4th best, who happens to be a man, and he says, "Yeah, sure, I can come. I have a lot of things to talk about here, and lots to say and stuff." And there, I would encourage women to grab it, take it and don't hesitate, because if you're good, if you're the best, you're the best, and show it.
Well, we had exactly that experience with one of our earlier episodes. I won't name it because the guy who turned up was very good to us, but we had a similar.
But the woman would have been better.
But also for females that could transition, I think Finland has already produced one at a very high profile rate. Sanna Marin, right? She, was not just known politically here in Finland, but she took like a lot of the kind of cultural energy in the States towards sort of progressive social democrat prominent areas forward. So
exactly, and talking about sort of the rhetorical side of things, I think she was strategically excellent for Finland, and all the vitriol she got. I think it's just amazing, and I think it's horrible. And actually, as much as concentrating on the sort of like, the hard content or whatever. I mean, the cover of Time magazine and stuff, all the things, how she inspired and made Finland famous in a way as well. So it's sort of like a Kennedy-like figure in a way, if you can allow me to use that sort of as reference. So there's so much more. The same way as you can't sell stuff with only facts, you have to use some other tricks as well, which Finns should learn better in Kauppishankkeen, whatever as well.
Kauppis.
Yeah, Kauppis perhaps.
Aalto.
Yes, Aalto. But so anyway, I mean, there was so many elements, so many layers, so many things about her presence and her visibility globally that is as important as the mere sort of political content she produced inside Finland or for Finland or in Finnish politics.
So,
And I think she was a good role model for many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many women, but also men.
Yeah.
but as a communication expert, so how do you see, like, what's her secret? What is her secret? Why is she so, why she's known internationally? Yeah.
Well, it's a very good question. I think, of course, in a way, things like being present in her own way and having her own style, which looks like her and stuff. But of course, we have to be honest. I mean, she's good looking, and the same with men as well. Looking at politicians or movie stars or TV anchors or pop stars and stuff. Of course, without looks, many of them wouldn't be where they are. So we have to be honest about it. And it's the same thing. Someone can be born with good looks. Someone can be born with a great sense of humor or great intellect or great athletic ability. So we just have these things in us, and some of us can use them and harness them better than others. But we shouldn't deny that that's of course one thing of. Kennedy looked good as well.
Absolutely.
Better than Nixon.
And again, with a British and American background, that's always a part of the conversation. Do they, quote unquote, look the part?
Yeah.
And that works on both sides, although it's actually true. I don't think we talk about it that much with female candidates, probably because of I don't know.
Of course, it's a touchy subject, but just to be sort of honest about these things, and American presidents, they always say that the tallest candidate has won and stuff, and it's we are, in a way, we are primitive animals. We're not sort of over rationalized robots.
Yeah.
We are human beings, and we have for good or bad, we have these primitive sides as well, and that's not perhaps a bad thing either in the age of AI and super technology and stuff. I think we have to cherish our primitive sides as well.
It does. I mean, there's a strange thing. Like, I mean, I try to think back to now, like some of the corporate experiences that I have, and usually, particularly when you build up towards like executive global leadership thing, you need to accumulate lots and lots of traits. So good policy, good knowledge base, good talker, good in indecisive moments. And I think that like that last piece of the puzzle for Sanna was that it was very easy to take her content, which sounded good, looked good, was presented well, was logical. So the base and the foundation was always like good, solid competence.
Yeah.
And maybe...
Sorry, it's true. And she always looked, as you said, solid and competent. She never looks as if she would be, she would hesitate and that's one thing about charisma as well. I said earlier that, of course, you must know when to be humble and stuff like that. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have to show that you're, in a way, sort of secure and you own the place. And she looks very and acts very in a very competent manner. I'd say that as one of the answers to your question, I'd say as well. So a very good straight talker and
What about sense of
clear
humor?
Messages.
For sense of humor and irony, is that an important part of leadership and effective communication? I just know from personal experience that sometimes when you make too many jokes, you come across as not being very serious about stuff.
Is this a personal session?
It's a personal reflection.
But I hope you've learned from it. But I say there's sort of margin within you should move, and every an exaggeration in both directions is bad for you. If you sort of have too much humor, joke too much, you're just a joker. And if you never do it, you're a bore. I mean, that's not good either. And I'd say self-irony is one of the most important humor aspects. A politician or a leader who hasn't got self-irony, no one actually likes.
Yeah, if you take yourself too seriously,
you
if you're
can't do it. You have to be able to look at yourself in a sort of funny way as well.
Although I'm sure there's
which all of us we do. I mean,
there may be 86 million Americans who might disagree with you.
yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Yes, but let's not go into that.
No, it's a different podcast.
There was an interesting article in Helsingin Sanomat the other day where the former Finnish ambassador who is just returning back to Finland from Washington, he said that now that US is the biggest export partner of Finland, just past Germany. He said that self-confidence is something Finns need to learn in order to, cope in that market.
And communication skills. You have to learn to sell.
Absolutely.
I shared this on LinkedIn.
I did.
It was so interesting for me as a communications person. So it was a very interesting interview as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, but you know this saying that instead of saying 1,000 words, you just need to show something, right? Your deeds say 1,000 times more than your words. So would you disagree with that?
No. It's an all journalistic thing as well. I mean, show, don't tell. So, say you're a radio reporter. So people can't sort of see a picture anywhere. So in order to, or rather than telling the audience there's a very beautiful house there, make a description, tell things about the house that the audience can themselves understand and paint a picture before their eyes and understand that it's a very beautiful house. Instead of you're telling them, I'm standing in front of a very beautiful house. That's actually very boring. But outside a house which is sort of light rosé colored, white window paint, blah, blah, blah. So if you do that sort of thing, ivy around the windows and blah, blah, then people will get the picture much stronger than if you say that it's just sort of a pretty house.
So in the case of leadership, right, we talk a lot about leading by example. So what is more important in your opinion? Is it to show by example or then to talk to people, use words to inspire them?
Well, both in a way, because you can talk in a way. And I was sort of thinking about, metaphors and other rhetorical skills and stuff. So, of course, part of being someone who can convince other people is to know how to talk and how to use rhetorical skills as well. So, in a way, that's part of that picture. But then, on the other hand, of course, I guess being a leader who sort of walks the walk instead of only talking the talk, of course, is considered a leader who has or represents, real power or real leadership, rather than someone who only talks and never shows anything. It's sort of like, oh, well, boy, if you're a leader who no one follows, you're walking alone. That's sort of.
I had an interesting discussion yesterday, actually, in the elevator of the company where I work at. We are about to launch some sort of an HR framework, HR development framework.
So I have to ask, were you both Finns talking in the elevator?
Yeah, actually we do.
Amazing
in
stuff.
Wärtsilä,
Wow.
we do.
Okay,
In Wärtsilä we do.
Colleagues, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that is. But I don't know anybody because I'm new in the company.
Okay.
But I'm a person who talks to people, or at least I say hello. But it is a company where people talk very easily to you,
That's good.
and it's just amazing. It's feels really good. Very homey. But we had this discussion and she said we are just about to launch this and we have been working on the communication of this framework. And she said, but we don't have any proof points on this concept working. We're just launching the framework, but we don't have, we are talking about well-being. So should we somehow, justify that already that we have, this is what we have started or this is what we have in place, etc. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about when, about showing and not just telling. And this is in internal communications in companies often the case. You have a great idea, you launch it, but you don't have those proof points, those things that, okay, we have already done this, we are about to do this, and now we are sort of putting it in a bigger framework, and this is what we are going to do. And that is, of course, for me as an internal communications director in the company, that is for me to actually, to prompt that and say, okay, at least we need to be ready to counter those questions.
Yeah.
But I think it's extremely important that you, the stories you tell, there are things you launch in a company as a leader when you talk to your employees or your fellow leaders, that you can substantiate the things you are saying.
Yeah, and sort of open and honest communication, and you don't have to have all the answers as long as you say that that's the situation, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I think that's a good company culture, communication-wise.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I do like the fact that, though, in Finland, you kind of have to say, I'm a person who talks to people. in other cultures, I think that's just a human. But it is a good example of where I think Finns quite often fall down. So like they get into this mode of, I can see it this way, and I will tell people that this is how it's going to be. But they don't really get into that sort of showing. And particularly if you want to do business in the States, they need usually like a reason, not just to buy, but to trust you.
Yeah,
I think the Americans, are quite used to being like sold to, and so they try to work on the value proposition. What do you think about Finnish leaders in general, like in that space?
Well, I think, and why I feel it's much in a way easier and nicer and more fruitful to work with communication in Finland than in the US, for instance, is that everyone in the US are sort of good communicators, and they sort of know and they learn it already, in school and all these things. And I know it's a cliche, but anyway, we are sort of a country of engineers who want to, even sell with facts. And there's old joke, some, engineer built a machine and told the audience, well, here's a good machine, it's working, and that's a price. And then this consultant says, but hey, now you have to sell it. The engineer says, well, I just did. I said, it's working, and that's a price. What else do you need? And the thing is, we know from, car commercials, for instance, why do you have beautiful people dancing half naked on the beach and birds flying and palm trees swaying in the wind, blah, blah. Yeah, why not just sort of shoot cold facts on the TV screen and that's the car, buy it. You're happy, you drive away. It doesn't work. So the thing is, we can't sell with facts. We have to be able to check those facts in the morning so that everything is okay and no one's lying. But we can't inspire people to do stuff, to buy this stuff or to react the way we want them to react only by offering cold facts. And that's the skill set of rhetorics that, people have been teaching since 2,500 years back when it was first made into a sort of science, by Aristotle and the guys and girls.
Logos, pathos, ethos.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, we are human beings. We react mainly through our hearts and then only to our brains. And George Lakoff in the US, who was one of the sort of communication gurus in the 60s, said that after he sort of researched that the human thought processes are largely metaphorical. And we share stories, we think about, that's why we paint sort of pictures when we speak instead of only laying out straight facts.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because we can relate so much easier to sort of pictures we see in words.
Can I ask you about the rhythm in communication? Because the leaders, the top leaders, the CEOs I have worked with, they are often very witty. They're very fast. They're fast thinking. They have always answers. Or
like A-type people.
Yeah, a bit A-type. Yes, yeah. Is that? And that was also, by the way, in that Helsingin Sanomat article was also that, you need to be faster. And I know I have an engineer husband, so I know that fast is not exactly the word I would describe him when he starts
Going through facts.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a good thing as such.
But
in order to sell and inspire, it's not enough.
Is that something, a characteristic one would need to go up the hierarchy?
Well, it's a very good question because you can be charismatic, I'm sure, with a slower rhythm and stuff. But anyway, you have to know how to. You can do it with a slower rhythm, in a slower rhythm, but you need to know how to inspire. So anyway, whether you're quick or, of course, in a way, if you are energetic and quick and fast like this and snappy, of course, it may look more inspirational as such, because that's the character of inspiration is something which is energized, I guess. But which doesn't mean that if your person or character is not this sort of super extrovert, ADHD type of person, that you wouldn't be able to be inspirational. I don't think that's true. But anyway, at the end of the day, you can't do it with mere facts. You have to create stories and use metaphors and sort of this rhetorical skill set, which is not only words, it's only also how you look. Look at great speakers, for instance, how they look on stage as if they, own it. They don't sort of go like, I'm very insecure and blah, blah, blah. I tell good stories. And like Martin Luther King, whatever. I mean, you have to know how to, take the stage when you deliver your message, which is not only facts.
And it's about sense of rhythm. Sorry, I keep talking over everybody.
But that's why we are here.
You can talk over me. That's good.
The most kind of successful case in the Finnish history was Nokia, right? Run by engineers, largely.
And you two worked there.
Exactly. No, but I mean, from what you're telling us, so it's kind of comes across as a strange, right? That a bunch of engineers leading a company made it so big. So how do you explain that case? So is it some kind of outlier?
Well, in a way, it could be an outlier. It could be perfect timing, could be a perfect product for those times. But anyway, how history then went. I mean, I think that was their downfall, that they thought about it in too much in sort of factual terms. Then you have like Steve Jobs coming with a phone that is not technically any better, could be even worse, but it's somehow sexy in a way that
Look better.
the Nokia thing wasn't.
I mean,
and that's about stories and metaphor as well. There's
the rise and the fall. So if we're focusing only on the rise, I would say there's two parts. So at least from my experience, which is not just in Nokia, it's also outside of it. Yeah, there was the crest of a wave. There was a new technology group that Finland and Nokia were in particularly prepared for more than any other country. And then the second thing that I would say, which is, I would say beyond Nokia, I don't think, so inspirational, I've met quite many executives that don't know how to inspire people, but I don't think I've ever met an executive that doesn't know how to sell. Like every executive that I like at a super high job level, whether they are a lawyer, a product guy, an engineer, they know roughly how to sell the stuff that they've got. Like, and I'm not sure exactly if it's the same as the inspiration, but that company of engineers is true. But obviously at the top level, there was still guys making very good deals, moving into markets, understanding the value of the product that they had and moving it.
Yeah, and brilliant people at Nokia as well those years, I guess.
But it was very factual, right? It was not about metaphors or things like that.
But in a way, I just say that, of course, you can always sell with huge profits. You can sell products by, landing it with or giving it the perfect price, and it functions technically well, and this is a good thing for you to use. But the real killer applications, the long-lasting success stories, I think so. Like Simon Sinek says, there has to be a real purpose behind it. You have to sell a lifestyle, a vision, something which is just not sort of a usable gadget in your everyday life. You can sell that as well to great profits, at least a certain amount of time or to a certain audience. But if you want to have this sort of really, really long-lasting, world-conquering thing, you have to you have to sell a religion in a way. Or
and the
it's
Nokia,
like Apple.
and the Nokia's rise religion was connecting people, right? You just needed a device
That's a
that
good
was
message,
durable,
yeah.
right? That was a really great both marketing, branding. It was the whole thing. When iPhone came out, that wasn't about connecting people anymore, right? We were basically roughly already connected. That was about entertaining people, and it's a different sell, and it's a different person that you buy from, because I think that engineering background you're looking for is you can trust us. That's what in the rise phase. That's what there were 4 or 5 other really big players at the time, and Nokia's pitch was we connect people, and we're the engineers you can trust.
And that's a very interesting comparison as well. Connecting people is something which is understandable for an sort of, in a way, engineer's brain. I mean, that's a very practical, concrete thing you do. You connect people, but of course it has a warm heart in there as well. But entertaining people is not anymore about engineering skills. It only reaches the heart. It's not sort of a mind thing. It's just a feel-good factor or something. Connecting people is still sort of, we have a cable and we connect from here to here, and then this works. It's still sort of a very technical thing, even if it has sort of a warm message inside it. But that's interesting, I think. Comparison.
And it's not a coincidence that actually most of the executives at Nokia, business executives, they all come with a sales background. I'm not saying, I don't know, I wasn't there when at the very early stages of the rise, I was joining when it was already
For the fun part.
Yeah, for the fun part, as change was my thing. But that is when I look at the successor planning, the talent profile of the successors of the executives, they all have sales background.
It's about how you frame things, right? It's not a decline; it's a negative growth.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. I mean, who likes that first bit of the roller coaster when you just go up? It's boring. Okay.
All right.
Always join the party when it's at its highest.
Yes, that's
Exactly.
right.
Just before they flick the lights.
Peter, you talk a lot about metaphors as an important part of communication. So let me kind of ask you about this metaphor of duckpond. You've written a book about it as well, about your relationships with the Swedish-speaking community and how you see yourself as part of that. So, first question, do you think it's a fair metaphor describing like really nicely what's happening? This 6% of Finnish population, Swedish-speaking...
As a duck pond.
Yeah, is it really a duck pond or something else?
No, I think, people, it's sort of small and close and in a way sort of warm, of course, with some caveats, but anyway, it's sort of like, everyone knows each other, and the first question sort of, your name is that, is that, by the way, your cousin, blah blah blah. So in a way, it's very funny. It's sort of like a duck pond, yes. So it's a cliche, of course, and for some, this duck pond is constraining and it's too narrow and too tight and something. But always two sides to every story. So, but it is somehow it's true, I guess.
Is it possible to become part of one of the ducks in that pond if you are not Swedish speaking?
Well, I guess you could sort of become a naturalized duck in a way. Of course, I mean, you marry into a family, or you just sort of work and live a lot with. But it's very difficult questions. I mean, and it's at the end of the day, I guess it's always how you identify yourself. That's of course a very modern thing as well. I mean, but you can, of course. I don't know if there are any limits. You can register yourself as a Swedish-speaking Finn if you want. I don't think there's any language test to it or anything. So if you,
but the thing is, if chicken comes to the duck pond, will ducks recognize the chicken? You can identify whatever you want, but
I hope they embrace the chicken.
Right. But I was thinking that I studied at Hanken myself, even though I'm not a duck in that sense.
Not yet.
I want to be one day.
Duck in training.
I want to be a duck.
You have your Hanken background, I know.
Exactly. Yeah. So my question is basically, isn't it just a nice metaphor to describe, very close community where people do benefit quite a lot from the social capital that they have from the relationships. In many other countries, it exists as well. But like countries like Russia or China with Planche and blood, it has this very negative connotation, right? Kind of it's seen as a bad thing. But here, through that duck pond metaphor, it has a more positive connotation. But in essence, it's the same type of phenomena.
Yeah, exactly. But ducks are always sweet and they're not very harmful. So of course, I think and that's a metaphor. That's a rhetorical thing as well. And that's the picture we're painting with a duck pond is, of course, something which is very I don't know, nice and naive even. But of course, you have always like many sides to all sorts of stories, and there are good things with it and bad things with it. But it's a fact that you have in all these societies, you have certain circles. You might have club members, or you might people who belong to a small religious community or something. So in a way, at the end of the day, I think it's the same thing here. So the people inside, they can benefit from it, but they can always be also perhaps strangled by it a bit. And then people from the outside look at it, and some people look at it in a way that this small mafia is doing, things that we don't get, and other people might think that, hey, this is a very nice thing, and I would like to, be in it. So I know, but it's anyway, we're all individuals and stuff, and it's easy to storify this a bit too much, and if you ask Swedish-speaking Finns about the duck pond thing, I guess you'd get more or less 300,000 different answers.
Yeah.
And what it is and what it is not, and how do you benefit from it, and do you benefit actually at all from it? And that's but there are, I'd say, cultural differences in a way which somehow relate to the smallness and the duck pondedness of the thing, and usually a bilingualism and everything. And actually we talked about Nalle Walros, Björn Walros earlier, and he had this joke about, the earlier success years of Finnish industry, like with Nokia and stuff. So the thing is, like, we always put, like technically brilliant Finnish engineers, they built the machines. Then we had like Finnish-speaking engineers. Then we had Swedish-speaking guys and girls who didn't know anything about, technical stuff, but they talked languages, and they could talk about food and stuff, and nice conversations and blah, blah, blah. So that was the perfect match in a way. You had this sort of the Finnish engineers with the hard skills sitting there in the cellar basements and doing all the stuff. And then we had the talkative Swedes who went to socialize with people and sold it. And that was the golden
era.
And the perfect sort of combo and match. So in a way, you have sort of a story about, even if it's a cliche, a story about cultural differences, I guess. But anyway, if you want to, play around with these things a bit, I of course feel that you can go, along these cliches and have a bit of fun with it as well, and see that there are some differences, and on a general collective level.
There are differences there. It's a good question.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good question how much you want to focus on them, though, because like you said,
it could be fun, just fooling around with, but just making a bit, fun about these differences.
Yeah, I think that's what Alexei is always trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to get into the Swedish-speaking parties.
Becoming a duck, yeah.
becoming a duck. Okay.
Yeah, the Hanken parties offer a good, platform for becoming one of those
duck
ducks.
membership.
through fun.
Yeah.
Fun and games.
Honorary duck, yeah.
Lovely. Okay, well, we've been going now. You've been incredibly generous, Peter, with your time. Thank you very much for spending time with us and for being so open. I think we've learned a great deal from your experiences and perspectives. Maybe to finish up, if you think about Finnish leaders in general, what could they be working on? What could they do a little bit better in terms of trying to build the reputation of Finland and moving abroad?
It's a good and a big question. And coming back to Anneli, we talked about this article. So I'd say therein lies, the answer. Communicate better. Be more bold. Try to find ways to inspire more. be more front-footed, try to lose sort of the worst sides of this, what we could call sort of Finnish shyness or humbleness. Be a bit more sort of aggressive and front-footed in a positive way. I think that would be, and basically that's my thing. That's why I'm talking about these things, because that's what I would like to, and I try to teach people to be more inspirational and learn how to communicate in a way that would, in this case, be more selling, for instance. Yeah. So I think that would be, and all these other sides and aspects of communication as well. I mean, be yourself, be honest, know in a way how to be humble as well. You have to be able to show weakness as a sign of strength as well. All these things we talked about. So, but it comes with a full package. It's not just a couple of tricks, but it's sort of how you carry yourself in so many ways.
How you take to the stage.
Yeah, take the audience and read the room and all these things and anyway, just to finish off with, one of the best descriptions of dialogue that would be that a real dialogue has happened if let's say if you have like two people communicating and at the end of the dialogue conversation, both people have enriched themselves and built something together that they wouldn't have had without that connection and conversation. So it's about sort of a real plus sums game, and that's how a leader or anyone else should communicate, to build sort of a dialogue with the other part, with the audience, and you both learn from it. You both come out richer. And not in a sort of monetary way, but in you have learned something and become wiser. It's sort of like a thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, or whatever. I mean, this sort of a structure.
Well, I hope you feel enriched by the conversation today.
I'm very honored by being invited here. Very nice and wise vibes to discuss with you about these things, and great to be invited.
Awesome. I hope you guys feel enriched also.
Absolutely enriched. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time. Okay. That was the enigmatic Peter Nyman, who was very generous with his time here. I really liked some of his sort of insights and the way he thinks about leadership and the role of communication. How do you guys feel? Alexei?
Well, I feel great. Enigmatic, not anymore. I think that's
Are you more of a duck?
Well, let me come to that, to this bird talk. If kind of going through the points that I would take, he mentioned that, we're supposed to become richer, not financially, but mentally, intellectually.
He's in Finland, so.
Yeah, exactly. But what stayed with me it was great to see him like in real, here with us. Not just on the TV screen. I saw him so many times on TV, and his amazing charisma and stuff like that. So having him here was beautiful to see that he's very approachable, very easy to connect, and a great guy. From the content, what he talked about. So again, we see this point that he doesn't see himself as a leader, but more like a thought leader. Which is, we do get that quite a lot from Finnish leaders in all walks of life.
Yeah.
So he just confirmed that, and again, this humbleness comes across, humility. I also like this idea that I do use a lot in my own teaching about, kind of authentic, strong leaders supposed to have strong core, but also be vulnerable. So that's kind of good takeaway that he's also agreeing with that point of view.
Yeah, using weakness as a strength.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course I did enjoy the animal talk, about the birds. Can chicken become a duck? But being serious, so like I like the point about this. Humor is an important quality of effective communication, but don't overdo it. And then I think he was quite clear about the differences between Swedish-speaking leaders and Finnish-speaking leaders.
Yeah.
Chickens and ducks. And so basically now we know. So you get a management team consisting of Finnish managers, and then you put the Swedish-speaking guy on top, and that's a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Nobody talked about the white, beautiful swans that the ugly ducks become.
That's true. That's true. How did you like Peter?
I have met him before a couple of times, and I would anytime take him as a coach to improve my presentation skills and my skills to encounter and discuss with media and interview skills. I think he knows himself very well, so you can see that he's very easy with himself, etc., which makes everybody around him feel easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
One thing that I would have liked him to talk more about is when he has to interview people on and challenge them on difficult stuff. And that is perhaps something next time we can cover that with him at some point. Because that is also skill. It's a skill to get people talking, even though you're challenging them or you are, taking them into an unknown or not friendly ground.
Yeah, it's true. I think so. He talked quite a lot about sort of concept leadership and thought leadership more than kind of like what does it take to actually then get to the root of that issue.
Yeah,
You're right. I think we could have maybe pushed him a bit more on
Yeah.
that. But I did think he was quite good on like obviously his background is communication and presentation in particular, and I thought he was quite insightful on like, perception of leaders and even female leadership, and some like breaking down. Very few people talk openly about Sanna Marin's looks, right, as part of the package, which is a bit odd given that is how you would talk about Stubb, for example. It's one of the first things you notice about Stubb is that he's like a handsome, tall, blonde dude.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. But it's part of the package, and optics and visual is part of communication as well. Even though I feel that we need to push the boundaries there, as he said, bring out the inner beauty or the skills or the expertise of the people instead of just the looks or get people focused on the looks. I thought it was a really rich conversation.
Yes, enriched. We're all enriched.
We are enriched.
All enriched
But
apples.
I disagree that Stubb is a blonde dude.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
You don't see yourself as blonde. I would describe you as blonde.
No.
Okay.
Not naturally, at least.
I need to go back to the video archives and check. But I mean, at least from my side, the one thing that I thought he mentioned a couple of times that we could have probably maybe poked a bit more was the smallness of the duck pond. So when you were talking about the Finnish-Swedish thing, he mentioned twice that it can be suffocating, and I feel like he chose that word like specifically. I think that's a kind of a big theme of the book as well. We also actually didn't talk about VSD Vaikuta that much, which is an excellent book that you should all go buy because there's loads of great stories about history and historical context. So there's like, as you can imagine, because he loves talking about historical references, there's a lot of good insights in there from history. But I really liked sitting down with him. He was he's got a lot of depth for, it's a sort of a strange thing because you can think about presentation and acting as being a relatively superficial endeavor, but he actually brings a great deal of, I was struck by how much depth there is in that kind of space. Okay, but I hope you guys had something to go home with. I hope it stirs some thinking for you. And until next time, thank you for listening, and for those who are watching, thank you for watching. Thanks to Bella behind the mics and the mixing board. Thanks to Liam, who's on the camera today, and thanks to those who've been listening. To Bloom Finland for supporting us, and thanks to you, Annalie, and to you, Alexei.
And to
Thank you, Mark.